Hello, what is up, everybody? My name is Mario Picciardo, and in today's episode of Methods, we're going to be talking about a little bit about business, you getting yourself set up, getting yourself started, why I got into business, and how you can too, and the kind of different ways that you can get yourself involved, so on and so forth. The reason that I got into starting my own business, the reason that I said, hey, you know what, I want to go do this is, when I was younger, I always wanted to, I think intellectually, I matured at an early age, and I kind of was wondering to myself, and I said, well, what's really the meaning of life? What do I want to do with my life? What matters? And when I was younger, I always told myself, probably because I was bullied a lot, because I was bullied a lot when I was younger, I told myself, I want to do something with my life that's meaningful. I want to do something that matters, that people can hear and can uh, feel inspired by. I wanted to be successful, but not just in the traditional sense. I wanted to have a real impact in the world that went beyond however much money that I was able to get. So I kind of started, and on me doing, this podcast, this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, is a way for me to kind of do that, is to expand my brand. But I always had it in me when I was younger that, hey, I don't want to work for somebody. I want to be independent. And that probably has to something to do with the fact that my father owns his own business, works at as his own boss, and I kind of always wanted to just kind of emulate that, in that would be what I was able to do. And when I was younger, I don't know why, I just thought that was the natural inclination. It made no sense to me why anybody would want to work for someone else. And so even going to school and just kind of having that experience of being in school was like, okay, this is weird. I mean, I'm learning. I remember distinctly being in college, and calling my mom, and I was just upset. I was so upset. I was crying on the phone with her. And she was like, what's wrong? I was like, well, I don't want to be here. I want to be out there. I want to start my own business. I want to be doing my own thing. I don't want to have to be worrying about worrying about other people. I want to do what I love to do. And I, you know, I stayed. I stuck it out because of my mother. So I was able to graduate with a degree. And I'm very grateful to have it. But my even in college, I kept thinking, and I said to myself, man, like, I need to do my own thing. I can't work for someone. I can't work for someone. But I think the biggest drawback for me was always, to getting started, was always, um, I think a part of it's lack of discipline. I think a part of it's also a different self image, because I don't think everybody really looks at themselves and says, uh, I'm ready to, I'm actually going to change my identity. And I don't mean that on a conscious level. I mean it on a subconscious level, because it's a lot. Changing who you are is difficult. To go from someone who has not achieved their dreams to someone who all of a sudden is doing the things that they said that they would do, and these things that are really kind of life altering, going from someone who is working the 9 to 5 to independent is huge. I mean, it's such a big moment for anybody. And for me, especially, uh, starting my own thing was hard. Not in the traditional sense. It was hard because I think a part of it was the discipline of sitting here and making sure that I got everything done day in and day out. But the other part of it was also saying to myself, okay, well, what do I don't think that who I thought I was always the person who, my self identity was the person who was trying to build a business instead of the person who actually had the business. So and there's a very important distinction there, because you can try to do anything, but actually doing it is like a completely different story, experience, X, Y, and Z. But I mean, I had fun, uh, working, trying to do my own business, trying to do my own thing. I failed a couple of times. I remember being in college and, just sitting in my dorm room And one of the good buddies that I made, we were just sitting in my dorm room, just hanging out, just chilling. And, you know, my buddy out of nowhere, we're just like playing video games. He says, he turns to me and he says, I had this idea to do a laundry business at the university. And he says, and I say, really? Because he knows I'm a big business guy. And it's funny because the way that he brings it up is kind of very like nonchalant. Like I don't think he knew that it would go anywhere, that we would take it anywhere. But he said, oh, I had this idea for this laundry business. I don't know if you want to do anything with it. We could do something with it. And I was listening to my friend and I said to myself, in those moments, wow, I just remember he said, I had this idea and I was like, I don't know, it just clicked for me. I was like, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And so I just turned to him and said, let's do it. So I've always had that kind of drive to want to do something like that. And that kind of gets into what we are going to be talking about today, which is, I don't know, it's long-winded me just talking about that experience and so on and so forth. But what we're going to talk about today, building your own business, doing your own thing. I think a lot of it comes down to, at least what it's been for me as I've been building mine, is it goes a little bit beyond discipline, I think, because I think discipline is always going to be required. But I think that what's more important than even discipline is finding yourself, creating an environment for yourself or a steady cadence where doing what you're trying to do is easy. For example, when I sit at my desk, I have this mic. And for those of you who are watching on the podcast, the mic that I'm speaking into right now, I just have this mic on a stand, that's on a boom arm. So it's like swinging, it swings, it's always in my face. So I always, am reminded that, I bought this so that I could do podcasts, so that I could record YouTube videos for people about all different kinds of things, all different kinds of subjects. So, a part of it is, making the act very simple and very easy. I found that that's allowed me to be consistent in my work. But then the other part is kind of, there is that level of discipline, but there is also a level of passion that you kind of have for what you want. And even if that passion isn't for anything in particular, that passion could also be for owning your own thing or doing your own thing, because it's the only reason why you would even sit there in the first place, to record the next audio tape or to write the next script or to draw the next painting or whatever it is. It's always going to be dependent on your ability or your desire to create something that you haven't ever really created before. So I think that for me, I was happy just to be able to do this. But the fact that I think that what held me back for so long was how much I didn't have the kind of setup that I would have needed to have gotten started. I don't think that I had the drive to do it. And I think that part of it was because of how difficult it was just for me to get set up. When you look at people back in the day who really wanted to do something, you know what I mean? You can always, look at anybody throughout history who's done great things. They moved in spite of the difficulty. Look at Rocky, the guy who played Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. And his life was really hard, but he had the desire to want to be an actor. And so, he tells that story of how he stayed up all night, and he stayed up for 24 hours writing the script to Rocky. And that's how it started. And so there is a level of people who have that drive, who have that desire, who can go out there and do the thing. Sure, there are also a lot of people who got lucky at the right time, at the right place. And, that certainly happens. But there's also, I think, a huge subsection of the population who are able to be successful simply because it's not that they had overwhelming willpower to do something. It's that they made, they took away all the distractions from their environment. so that being successful, being someone who is able to kind of, step out there and say what they need to say, to do what they need to do, was so much easier for them because there wasn't any friction. And that's an important point, because what it says is, okay, my bed is only for sleeping. My desk is only for working. So I don't have any distractions in my surroundings, so that I don't get distracted. And what is the number one pull for companies today in the advent of the internet? I'll give you a second. What do you think is the most sought after thing from people? What is the most sought after commodity right now when it comes to the digital age, when it comes to the 21st century, where we have, these super thin phones, where we have access to everything at the touch of a button? What's the number one thing that people are looking for? I'll give you guys 1 second. Think about what you think it is. And that answer is attention. It's the number one thing, baby. If you can get someone's attention, that's what everybody wants. They can throw an ad in front of your face, do whatever they need to do. Attention is what people are vying for. It's where the clickbait comes from, because advertising's huge. Advertising is massive in this age, and anybody who has an audience can make money. So, and that's worth something. I mean, it really says something about people. But also, besides that fact, I mean, that comes to really show you not only what advertisers want, but think about if that is in such high demand, then how much money do we think the companies are putting into putting the right ads in front of people, putting the right everything in front of people, so that they are more likely to click on it, more likely to look at it? We live in an age where addiction is being engineered into apps, into Facebook, into Instagram, into these games, into X, Y, and Z. And that speaks for something, but it speaks to something in the business realm as well. And that is that when we live in that kind of age, you're kind of creating or starting to live in a society that is saying to people, okay, well, if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to be an entrepreneur in the 21st century at this point in time, the thing that I really have to vie with now is not allowing myself to be distracted. The average adult, and I said this in the last episode, spends over, I forgot even the statistic, it was hours and hours every single day. I think the highest end that I saw was like 6 hours. Like a child will spend 6 hours just on the tablet or the phone or, the internet and stuff like that. And so our attention spans are not only shorter, but we're being attacked from every angle. It's hard to really withstand that in an age where we're also trying to be entrepreneurs, when access to entertainment is right at our fingertips. How can we're encountering a new problem, which is that we need to engineer our environments now more than ever to remove distractions, okay, so that we can be able to go out there and do the things that we want to do. I mean, Wi-Fi is prevalent. Wi-Fi is free in a lot of places. Go to any mall, if you can find one still. Well, they're still alive. Coffee shops, and you can buy a phone for I've seen smartphones that cost $50, $100. So the technology's there, the internet's there, the distractions are easily available. And that's saying something. So I just wanted to bring that up, because that, I think, is the number one factor that is really, I think, biting down on a lot of would-be entrepreneurs. And if you're listening to this, and you've thought about doing your own business, then it's something that is a time sink and a killer for everyone. Even if don't want to start your own business, just paying attention to how much time you spend online. But not just that, looking at your environment and intelligently thinking about, well, how is my home engineered right now that is distracting me from being able to do the things that I need to do? And so if I look over here, I have Poor Charlie's Almanac. You guys can't see it because of the thing, but it's right here. That book talks a lot about human nature. And one of the big things that it mentions is the attention the availability bias, which essentially says that if something is easily available to you, to me, to anybody else, then we are more likely to use it, even though we may not think that we would. In other words, if your desk is in the same room as your bed, well, and you always sleep in your bed, you get tired, you're going to think, oh, let me go take a nap there. And you kind of start to build a new habit. You kind of get distracted. If you have your phone at your desk, when somebody calls you, or you're used to checking Instagram all the time, that distraction's always going to be there. Those pingings, those rings, those everything. It's like so, and it's terrible because it also gives you a shot of dopamine. So it's kind of saying, oh, bing, 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 look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's hard. It makes it difficult. But that's just where we're at today. I think that if you really want to be someone who is intelligent when it comes to starting a business or doing something, I'm still working on the book. It's taking me a little longer than I thought, just because I want to make sure that it's written in the right format, that it's the highest possible quality that it can produce in terms of everything that you need to know is there. I don't know if I want to do it in more of like a story format or what, but Methods is coming along, which will be a book that I'm going to publish that is all about how can I build my business? What is everything that I need to know in order to be able to do that? What is everything that I need to be able to know, even for things like romantic relationships, platonic relationships. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Speaking, how to really public speak, how to build a business, how to invest, how to put your money into a financial system. And it's built on the backs of the greatest minds that I've ever read, one of them being Charlie Munger, another one being Warren Buffett, another one being Tony Robbins, another one being, there's so many. I could just turn right here. The people that wrote these books, Mike Maloney, who wrote the Guide to Gold and Silver. There's a little bit of Bible in there, because I did a lot of religious research as well. So Methods is really going to be a book that kind of encapsulates all these things and puts them in one resource. But this podcast is meant to be supplementary to Methods, in that it kind of covers all these different topics as well, and kind of goes into depth and kind of explains them in a supplementary fashion, so that you have that kind of information that you could use and take with you. And so, I think that one of the bigger things that we need to pay attention to, especially if we're considering kind of doing our own thing, is reading. You see behind me, I have this list of books, and there's everything here from, the Bible up here to this book, which is about health, called Real Food, Fake Food, that I bought for my mother, so that, we could start to change her diet. And there's other books here too. One here is about business. I haven't actually touched this one yet. You got here, this is this red one that you can see here is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. It was Warren Buffett's old teacher, and one of the men that Buffett highly praises as being an excellent investor, even though Warren doesn't currently still follow that exact methodology. So there's a lot. There's a lot here. There's a lot to learn. But the reason that I say, hey, for those of you who are watching on the podcast, I have a big pile of books behind me. So I was just pointing to some of those titles. But reading for me has been one of the greatest ways that I've been able to kind of just expand my mind and kind of say, okay, well, I want to do things a little bit differently than I probably otherwise would. And I have some ideas for what I think are going to be some really cool business, things. So I cannot understate the value of learning from other people on all different kinds of subjects. When you pick up a book, and I'm talking nonfiction here, but there's a lot to learn from some fiction books. There's some novels out there that are amazing. They can really teach you some great life lessons, and the reason that a lot of books have become classics is because they're so relatable to the human condition that the lessons that they have are timeless, and so they do become classics. So there's a lot out there to read, but every book that you pick up, I mean, if I just talk about, Poor Charlie's Almanac is a book that I mention a lot, has a lot of wisdom, not only in terms of investment, but also in terms of human nature, which is which is like a series that I'm covering on the YouTube channel, which is saying that, there are different tendencies that people have when it comes to how they act, and they're predictable, and people are predictable in so many different ways that if you paid attention to the ways in which people are predictable, to the ways in which people kind of repeat themselves, do a lot of that kind of thing, well, then there is a lot for us to learn here, in terms of, okay, well, let's take just a minute and kind of see where we can go here in terms of kind of combining a lot of different disciplines. I mean, if I take what I learned from behavioral economics, combine that with what I know from Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and combine that with, what Charlie teaches me here, combine that with what I learned from the Bible, combine that with what I learned from food, combine that with what I learned about physiology, combine that with what I learned about willpower, if I combine that with what I know about economics, if I combine that, very quickly I start to build what Charlie Munger references as a lattice work of models, where I have all these different kinds of ideas, all these different kinds of concepts from a bunch of different kinds of disciplines, and I can now start to mold them together. And that molding will allow me to see the world in a way that is multidisciplinary. In other words, I can look at the world not just, let's say I'm a mathematician, right? And that's all I did, and I have 2 PhDs in math. I can have that to me represents a hammer, okay? But I don't want to be the man who turns around and tries to hit every nail with a hammer. There are some jobs that require a saw, some jobs that require a drill, some jobs that require a different piece of equipment than I have. And so it's kind of silly for me to kind of look at the world, try to look at the entire world through just the framework of mathematics, or the lessons that mathematics has to teach us. But if I added to that the lessons that I learned from behavioral economics, from economics itself, from physics, from chemistry, from physiology, biology, and I add that to what I know about psychology, if I add that to what I know about health, if I add that to what I know about religion, if I add that to what I know about investing, if I add that to what, and you kind of start to, as Elon Musk puts it, you are able to kind of generalize about the world. And through those generalizations, really what you're able to do is you're allowed to now start to see patterns in your environment. Through these different disciplines and the different concepts that you learn, a better way to understand it. Because not only do you have the reference point of what mathematics would say the environment is, but also now I can see it from the point of view that psychology or philosophy would say that it is, theology would say that it is. And so I kind of have that broader, and the thing I think with it is just that it allows you to know that how many more options you have out there. And very rarely, I think that you do run into a situation where you don't have something that you can use, or you run into a situation where you cannot relate to someone else, or you cannot. In other words, there's a lot to gain by reading, and I think that the biggest mistake that I've made since I started down this path was stopping my learning for months at a time, because I have been. Wow, I can't overstate how amazing reading has been in my life in terms of becoming better, just in terms of my thinking, just in terms of my ability to perform. So I'm a big advocate. I'm a big advocate for it. So I think that, I mean, really, when you just take those two ideas, right? So the two ideas that we talked about, the first one being creating an environment where doing the thing that you want to do is easy, but also now creating an environment where reading is encouraged. I mean, if you bought an audiobook, for example, and you read one every single day, Now that's pretty expensive, but even if you took 2 audiobooks and you, or even one, let's say you bought one nonfiction book and you read it uh, over the course of a month. Next month you bought another one, read it over the course of the month. Can you imagine at the end of that year you'll have read what 52 books, and the knowledge that you will have gained from that experience will carry through with you for the rest of your life. I mean, if you pick 50 of the top 50 books, that are out there for men, for women, for Christians, for you really get a, such a wide breadth, and it changes you. It really does. And I think that those people who don't allow themselves to learn about these concepts that we have the privilege of having at our fingertips, I think they're really missing out in terms of their own development as people. So, I obviously I encourage it. I think that it's a great way to go. And I think the third thing that I would say about building a business is making everything as easy, and this point also goes to every other part of life. And that's that you want to be able to make things as easy as possible. When you're ready to create a new habit in your life, making it as easy as possible for you to do the thing that you're trying to now add into your, let's say, habit repertoire. Make it as easy as you possibly can. And for me, that meant, okay, my first video is going to be 10 minutes, or no, my first podcast is going to be uh, less than half an hour, no video component, and then I was like, okay, let me try to do 45. Let me try to do an hour. Let me try to do, but very slowly, I didn't do it one boom, boom, boom. I kind of took my time with it. Now, you guys are watching this, I got there pretty fast, but I did a lot of takes before this, so even though the finished product may not seem like it, I mean, there's a lot of work done behind the scenes where I sit there and I just record until I start to get comfortable, and I just do it in little bits. And so not only is it important, I mean, when you're trying to create something new in your life, to kind of take it slow and take it easy, but also to give yourself a reward once you've completed the task that you want to do. So for me, when I finish doing this, I'll go play a video game, or I'll go get something to eat, or I'll find some kind of treat or something that is unique to this activity, so that I can kind of encourage myself to do it more. And that's just a very simple Pavlovian association. I mean, it's not, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just using my own knowledge of my own psychology, neurology, so that I can get the result that I'm after. And, and they're simple, but the reason that I think that everyone, and then I came back from this idea, but the reason that I think that people may want to consider doing their own thing, starting their own business in some way, shape, or form, is simply because of I think the freedom that it entails, and the fact that it kind of allows people to fit the holes in society where I think people are desperately needed. People who are willing to really put their lives together. People who are willing to become stronger, build a better character. You don't need to have your own business to be able to do that, but it's definitely an avenue to free up someone's time, to focus on the things that matter in their lives. I mean, if you're at a business or a job or a place that you're not very fond of, and God has called you to be somewhere else or to do something else, or maybe God has even called you to stay there, there's a job that we all need to do wherever we are. And for some people, I think that is, in fact, doing your own thing and using that as a vehicle to do the work that God has set out for us. So, I mean, I think that I'm very lucky to be able to sit here and share these things with you guys, and to be able to just kind of have this as a place where even I can just kind of share my own, not just share my own ideas, but to kind of just have as an outlet. It's a way that you can just let it all out there. Uh, so I'm very grateful to be able to be here with you guys. You know, I as I sit here in front of you, um, look, I think that there's a lot to learn. I think that there's a lot that we as people need to be able to do. Um, Building a business is an avenue for people to do more, but at the same time, not everybody is called to do that kind of thing. But if you are called, if you do find yourself, moving in that direction, yes, it's harder, but there are ways to do it. And I do think that it's worthwhile. I think that, especially now because Trump's president, I think it's a lot easier for businesses to become for individuals to start a business. Uh, I'm a huge proponent of it. I encourage people wherever I go to start their own thing, to do their own thing, to have that level of freedom so that they can do more for God. So that they can give back in a bigger way. And, so again, I mean, I think when it comes to building a business, besides the things that we've talked about, clearing up your environment so that you can be in a place where you feel where you're not easily distracted. Um, Building in an environment where the habits that you have, where you're rewarding yourself for the work that you're doing by making your work easier as well. I think that I would also, if I could give anybody any other pointer, besides those things, besides reading, introducing reading as a way of life, I would definitely say, nutrition is a no-brainer. Nutrition, making sure that you're eating right, that you're getting nutritious foods. I heard something recently that really shocked me, uh, because of its simplicity, and that's that. I was just listening to this guy who's on this show, and he was saying how he was going around in tours and stuff like that, sharing information with people, and really what he was saying was, hey, if you guys want to become healthy, especially for obese people who are trying to lose weight, well, you have to understand how calories are working, how the human body is working. When you get hungry right after you eat something, even if you ate a big meal, it's because, well, there weren't any nutrients in that thing that you ate. It's processed, heavily processed, like a lot of things that people eat. And that's why obesity is becoming an epidemic, because your body keeps searching for these nutrients that it's not finding in anything that it's putting in its body. And so then you have people with who become obese with heart problems, have to go undergo surgeries, and eventually die because they fed themselves foods that are not at all good for them. They don't have any nutrients. And so, he gets on and he says, essentially, listen, the reason why obesity is such a big problem and why people are having such a hard time being healthy in the United States of all countries is because a lot of the foods that we're eating are so processed, so heavily processed, that there are no nutrients left in the food. And so, when your body gives you that pang of hunger, it's trying to get nutrition from you. But the fact of the matter that you keep feeding it processed foods, all it's seeing are empty calories, things that it cannot use. And because of that, it once it eats something, it's still hungry. And so you eat again, thinking that, that this is just natural, but it's not. And once you start to eat actual healthy foods, you find that your appetite isn't there as much because your body's starting to get the nutrients that it needs. So it's not going to be trying to eat as much. And ultimately that your body kind of benefits from that, in that, now your mind's a little bit sharper. Now you're not as hungry. Now you can focus longer. Now your memory is just a little bit better. And, all those things add up. And so, I mean, if we're really going to talk about, starting a business, if we're really going to talk about business at all or any part of our lives. I mean, nutrition is just such a fundamental thing. I mean, if you really want to be healthy, make sure your body is getting the magnesium, it's getting the calcium, the vitamin D, C, B, A, X, Y, and Z. Uh, yeah, I think it's really underscored, especially if we're even going to talk about something like, uh, sickness. How easy is it going to be for you to get sick when your immune system has all the nutrients that it needs? Okay, when you work out, so you keep your body strong and in good physical shape. When you keep uh, your diet well, if you keep your diet very nutritious, if you get a great night's sleep, if you make it a priority to get a great night's sleep, if you remove all the toxins from your environment, if you pray every day, you build a spiritual connection. And if you hold on, there are five of them. If you work out, if you eat right, if you drink a lot of water, that's the other thing. Drink a lot of water, but make sure it doesn't have any fluoride in it, because remember, fluoride is a neurotoxin. So, if we make sure, and fluoridated water is in the public water supplies, so you have to be very careful about where you're getting your water from, and check to make sure it doesn't have fluoride in it. But if you can do those five things, work out, make sure that you're getting good exercise, make sure that you're praying, that you kind of have a spiritual connection, that really does impact your physiology. If you make sure that you get a good night's sleep, work out, pray, eat right, and drink a good amount of water every single day, you will be in such a great physical shape that doing the business stuff is going to be so much easier for you. Uh, Health is something that is attached to any endeavor that we have. But it's just those five things that we need to make sure that we're doing day in and day out if we want to be people who are able to take on their environment, to take on the challenges of life, to be successful no matter what it is that we're working on or what it is that we're working towards. So, I mean, I always found that health was a huge, huge, huge part of any working, I think, person's life, any working person's time. And the fact of the matter is that when we neglect our health, that's when the disease sets in. And how much harder is it for you to do the things that you're out there meant to do if you are not, working on if you're not maintaining yourself? How can you go out there and help anybody else when you yourself are, bedridden? And people really do take it for granted, but they don't really understand it because, as Charlie talks about, another one of the biases, until you've felt the sickness, you don't know what it is to feel healthy. And when it's easily available to eat the crappy foods, well, then what are you going to do? Most likely. And again, so, there's a lot out there. I mean, if we want to start a business, if we want to do anything in life, just the amount of knowledge that's out there that is easily available to us, if we're willing to seek it out, if we're willing to do it. And a lot of it's just press away. But then again, it also introduces that other issue where it comes into, well, how easily can we get distracted? Because I think a lot of people have had the experience of being online, being on Wikipedia, being on any website, especially, a site like Wikipedia, and you just kind of click and you click and you click and you click and you end up somewhere else. I mean, you could do that with YouTube, social media, especially, Instagram, stuff like that. And it's wild because of that impact that it's able to have in our lives. So starting a business, I think, is really about cutting a lot of that fat out, trimming a lot of that fat, and being intelligent about the habits that we're building, taking into consideration that I'm rewarding myself whenever I do something that is favorable to me starting a business. I got to make sure that I immediately afterwards reward myself. This is a concept known as Pavlovian association, which is the idea that, okay, well, I just did something that was hard for me. I'm going to reward myself. Why? Because I want to get myself to associate the action with feeling good. because I know that when I do that, I'll be able to start building a passion for it, because I'll like it. I'll want to do it. And I mean, when you think about it, that's really what a passion is. Is it something that you love to do? And the interesting thing is that when there's something that you love to do, you're going to go the extra mile. You are, because you want to do it. So you're going to easily get better at it. You're going to easily find yourself in a situation where you're like, wow, this is like amazing. And a lot of it is really just taking those small steps, like we talked about before. Again, when I started this podcast, I did just a couple short videos. I was able to ramp it up quickly because I already had a background experience in doing things like streaming. I used to, when I was in summer break in college and I was at my house, and I had so much free time, I decided to, use that time streaming games because I was playing them anyway. I was like, I may as well do something with this. And it was hard at first. It was something that for me was very difficult because I was shy, way more shy. And it's, that matter of breaking that first barrier, and starting to build relationships with people that don't know who you are. And it's scary because you don't know if they'll like your stuff because you've never done it before. So you don't know about your quality, the quality of the things that you do. You don't know if people are going to be big fans of the work that you do. It's a lot. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that, I am very grateful that, I had that experience because, again, it showed me, okay, well, I need to be disciplined in doing this. Yes. But what was more important, and the reason that I even stopped doing it, because I stopped doing it after a while, was, and again, the reason that I started it, is I just wanted to do it, and it was hard. And there was a lot of days when it was hard, but I enjoyed it. And so, especially as I started to see, okay, one person's watching, two people are watching, three people are watching, and then people started to come back. And I was like, wow, I'm doing it. Like, this is amazing. People want to watch me do this. It even went so well. People were eventually like, oh, I just want to watch you eat cereal. It's weird, but, uh, I guess when, so I don't know. People just want to build a relationship with you, I guess. And they'll take any chance they get. You kind of feel like a mini celebrity, even though I didn't have that many people, subscribe to me. It was just fun, but it was an experience, and it taught me that, okay, well, this isn't just about the discipline, because if you don't like what you're doing, you're going to need a lot more willpower, baby. It's a lot easier if you just find something that no, I take that back. Not find something that you're interested in. Well, you should have something that you are interested in, or find something that you're interested in, but you can always build a passion on top of something. You just need to intelligently, work at how your body works. And again, it's very simple. Make this new habit, this new thing you want to start, easy to begin with, and reward yourself right after. Immediately give yourself a treat, give yourself something, do something that you would like to do, but do it immediately after. So you associate completing something with pleasure, with happiness. And now the thing that you want to do, maybe you want to be a streamer of games. Maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to become a writer. Maybe you want to open up a merchant shop. I don't know, another e-commerce store like I am, or, something like that. And it's just a matter of, making sure that you're putting in the time to do it, but working intelligently. Okay. And that means that, maybe today I'm just going to research products. Maybe today I'm just going to look at the store. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to pick a product and just look at more stats, getting yourself into the habit of doing it. And then again, reward yourself. Think about yourself like a hamster or a rat in an experiment, do whatever you need to do. But that's what it takes. That's what it took me. And the reason that I had stopped streaming, that I stopped putting those videos out there, stopped doing those things, is because I didn't follow that, because I wasn't aware, that I wasn't reading as much at that time. I didn't know the terminology that I had. And again, just because you know something doesn't mean you're going to apply it. Me applying something and learning about it are two completely separate things. But again, I could use the same concepts that I've learned about. So yes, it takes a little bit of willpower, but it takes intelligent planning and intelligent implementation. And there's a lot of other things that you can do to kind of bolster yourself up in terms of creating habits, so on and so forth. But we're not going to get too much into that in this specific episode. I'm sure we'll touch it later on down the road. But you know, I always found that if I wanted to create a new habit, if I wanted to, start a new business, if I wanted to do something else, uh, I always found that learning a good bit beforehand was always beneficial to me. And then again, there are those people who are going to, read everything and read everything. And this was me for a while, where I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading, but never really implementing. And what ended up happening is when I did sit down to actually start, I got something called analysis paralysis, where I just had so many ideas floating around in my head that I just didn't do anything at all. And that's probably even worse, right? Because then it just defeats the whole point. But it's it's not as difficult as we think. I think we're blessed because things are so easy, but I think that the fact that they became so easy, so many things became so easy, also made it a lot more difficult. Um, but that being said, there is a silver lining. You could learn anything you want to learn in today's society. You can do anything that you want to do in today's society, um, virtually. Um, so I've always found that I think that those are really the pillars or the tenets of what I found as I've been building my own business, um, as I've been going down that route. I think that when we look at it, and then again, I think that when we look at it in a grand scheme and kind of pull ourselves back a little bit and kind of say, okay, well, why are we building our business? We find the kind of the crux of something that Simon Sinek says in one of his books. He says it's called Start With Why. And the whole point of that book is to find meaning in the things that we do. In other words, we're not just starting a business, we're not just starting anything for the sake of doing it, but we actually have a reason behind it. I'm trying to better myself, not so that I can look better or even feel better about myself, but so that I can be more useful to God. That's why I want to build a better character. That's why I want to, be uh, physically stronger. Why I want to have more knowledge so that God has more to work with when he sees me, when he's able to, when I surrender myself to him. Um, there's always meaning to be found, in the things that we do. And I think that a lot of the time when people feel depressed, when they feel down, a lot of it has to do with the fact, well, they feel like a sense of meaning is really missing from their lives. Maybe they feel like there's a sense of connection that's missing from their lives. And that has a lot to do with the meaning that we attribute to things. There's biological reasons as well. Like, for example, if you're isolated, from people that can damage you psychologically, unless, you find great meaning in being isolated. I mean, maybe, for example, you're isolated because you stand up for something that you think is meaningful. Maybe, God has put you in a trial. And that meaning, though, will carry you through anything. I'm telling you, I forgot who it was, but someone once said, that a person with a why can endure almost any how or anything that comes to them. And that says a lot because it's true. The human animal is incredibly resilient when they have a reason or a meaning behind the actions that they're undertaking. I mean, we can endure incredible things. Mother can lift incredible weights when it comes to, her seeing her child in danger. They immediately, that adrenaline gets pumping, things come out that you never thought before because you have a reason for acting. There's something really at stake there by not. And I always thought, because when you play around even with the idea of more immortality, I think it's dangerous because in a way you really lose a sense of meaning. There is no real reason why you should do something now instead of in 5 minutes or in 30 minutes or in 30 years. Because when you live forever, I just think it's very interesting. Your sense of meaning can very quickly disappear. And it's the fact that, everybody wants to escape mortality. Everybody wants to live forever. But what they don't realize is that, well, it's the reason that we don't live forever that our lives become so beautiful and meaningful. Think about, if you've ever seen a movie or a book where the main character, the person that you've gone on this long journey with, even just vicariously by watching them, to see them die, or to see them struggle, or to see them fail, or to see them dealing with harsh things, it arouses the emotions within you. I mean, you become connected to this character, because now you find meaning in their struggle, even if it's not, their issue isn't immortality, but that sense of relatability to the struggle of another person, to the struggle of another being in general, is something that's very human. But the fact of, the fact of those limits, says something. It says something about meaning, and it says something about the time that we have to use it meaningfully. And as Jordan Peterson says, with the time that we do have, whether we're building a business or building a family or building a community or rebuilding one or trying to support one, that for the individual, our job is to become self-responsible. And so that is really, I think, what the last point that I have here to make today about building a business. And that's exactly the same concept that I've talked about in the last video, because it's such a cornerstone to, I think, our sense of self and society, which is that it isn't until the individual person takes responsibility for their own lives, their own health, their own finances, their own everything, and surrenders that to God, who takes, or at least takes responsibility for their own, predicament. And God, and don't get the two misconstrued. God tells us to take responsibility for ourselves and gives us a code of conduct for action. It's not that God, that we don't do anything and God does it all. He does that for our salvation, but God puts trials in front of us. There is work that we have to do if we want to live in a society that is prosperous, if we want to live in a society that is strong. Now, I don't want to cause any confusion here, because the Bible tells us that we're not saved by our works, and that's very true. We are not. Our salvation does not come from anything that we do. It comes from Jesus Christ. But, and that's absolutely true. There is no but. And if we, on a separate note, it has nothing to do with salvation, but if we want to live in a community that is strong, if we want to live in a community that is, well built, a part of that has to do with the work that we decide to do here on earth, and putting in our time and going through those trials as well, in order to create a better life here for other people. And that's really where we find our meaning. Again, meaning is not found in the things that we have. The meaning is not found in this microphone. It's not found in this book. Meaning is found, now they can point towards, be guideposts to that, or help you along to aid you to find or achieve a meaningful life. But, meaning is found in responsibility, as Jordan Peterson says, and meaning is found in picking ourselves up by the bootstraps before we try to influence the world around us. Because whether we're starting a business or building a family or starting a family, we have to consider that if we want to be strong business people, if we want to be strong anybody, we have a strong character. And we get that by taking responsibility back in our lives, to create a character that is strong. And, I think that for any society to really build that, because again, a society is just built up of people. I mean, that's all it is. The society is just people. There is no other thing out there. It's the people. But to have a society that has people who are like that, who are like how I'm describing, are strong societies. They're societies that don't succumb to concentration camps and holocausts and all these gulags. They're societies that are powerful, wealthy, strong, and have a very healthy middle class, have a very healthy, spectrum of wealth. Not socialistic, but a strong capitalistic society. Uh, and so, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to start a business, those are my tips for you. This is really kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think it all, when you really look at it, it's just like there's this huge spider web, right? In all of these different facets of life, all these different subject materials, they all really come together, and they come together, weave together to fit one story. And that's where everything kind of comes back to the individual taking responsibility for his own life. It's a very Christian idea. It's not anti-Christian at all. This, anybody who reads the Bible, read the 10 Commandments. It's about taking responsibility and showing love to your neighbors, showing love to your family, showing love to God by taking responsibility and not doing certain things. So I think there's a lot here. If you guys like this episode, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and share with your friends, share with your family, or anybody that you think might be beneficial to it. Let me know your comments down below, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think is, if you guys want to start a new business, let me know what the business is. Let me know, what your thoughts are on what it means to live a meaningful life. And with that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Everyone take it easy. Peace.